Come on, Livingston. We gotta go on and on and on. Together we can make it. We gotta go on and on and on. Come on, Livingston.
Knocks it through. Mullen bursting into the box. Josh Mullen.
Together we can make it.
Mullen's ball across, it's turned in! It's Pittman who's got it! Livingston leads!
Road is long.
Can they get the ball back in? O'Brien.
Lead! And Livingston have the lead!
Man, can score.
If we march together.
The full-time whistle blows and David Hayes celebrates! And the Livingston fans join in exultation.
Come on, Livingston.
Livingston have the lead against Rangers, and they are certainly rising to a few occasions on their return to the top flight in Scotland.
Come on, Livingston. We gotta go.
Hi folks, you're once again listening to the Talk Livi podcast, a podcast dedicated to West Lothian's finest football team, Livingston Football Club, and proudly sponsored by Strana Apparel. My name is Euan, and I'm once again joined by Angus. Is there any point now? Is it done? Can we be put out our misery yet?
Hello, Ian. Yeah, honestly, we'll obviously get into the game and everything like that, but just absolutely scunnered by whatever the hell that was, whatever the hell that first half performance was. Don't think I've quite recovered from it, and that's with hitting every pub in Inverness on the same night. But how are you, Ewan?
Minus obviously the result at the weekend. I did see one thing that was arguably more remarkable than us scoring 2 goals away from home, and it was a friend of mine spewing out his nose just before we got the train back from Inverness, which is something I've never seen in my 32 and a half years on this planet. So that was quite remarkable. But just scunnered, just absolutely scunnered. We'll come on to talk about the game in more detail, but as always, search for Talk Livi on your preferred podcast streaming site, where you can follow or subscribe so you don't miss an episode. You can also catch up on all our episodes that we've done to date as well.
We'll kick things off by discussing Livi's trip to the Highlands, as despite a great second half comeback, the Lions would lose late on against Ross County.
And finally, we'll look ahead to our home game with Motherwell before a trip to Perth to take on St Johnstone, as the Lions go in search of some crucial Premiership points.
The Lions headed to the Highlands to take on Ross County at the weekend in a crucial relegation 6-pointer. Despite trailing 2-0, the Lions fought back to level late on before conceding in stoppage time to lose 3-2. Ewan, if there was ever a chance for us to kind of give ourselves a glimpse of hope of, being able to leapfrog Ross County, that was it, right?
Yeah, it was a fantastic opportunity at the weekend. I kind of said to be cautious going into it and try and not get above our stations. At the end of the day, we were still going into the game bottom of the league with one win in, 18 Premiership games. So we shouldn't have been getting carried away thinking, we were going to leapfrog them. And I always kind of spoke about it again in the preview. I just always have that trepidation when we come into games against a team who's bang out of form. Ross County were exactly that. No wins in their last 10 in the league. And I kind of spoke about how these runs do need to come to an end at some point. First of all, looking at our starting 11, and I was saying this during the game, everyone was having a go at Sangari, etc. But I mean, you can't be overly critical if he's starting 11, given that team had went out the previous weekend and beat St Mirren. And we sat on this podcast and gave Sangari loads of credit for his performance at left back, but we saw the other side of Mo Sangari at the weekend and playing out of position, and it came to haunt us in the end. But I'm not going to have a go at the manager for putting him there, because he had put in a very good display in previous couple of games where he had moved to left back. But I think Ross County caught us off guard a little bit with their front three, playing Murray and Brophy, and almost Jordan White was playing as a 10. He was dropping off the front, went from being quite narrow to opening up. And I thought they caused us a lot of problems in the first half. Murray and Brophy obviously combined for the two goals, but I think we started the game okay in the first 10 minutes, but Ross County kind of grew into it. And to be honest, there was nothing between the sides at the point of the first goal. But, I mean, the goals are just atrocious. Absolutely atrocious. The first one, Murray's managed to pick the ball up in his own half. He's played the ball. And let's be honest, there's no excuse for Sangari in this one. It's on his strong side. It's not a difficult ball for him to deal with. And it's broken behind for Eamon Brophy. I don't know if I'm being overly critical, but the angle from behind the goal, having seen the replays, could Shamal do better? He kind of dives over the top of the ball, just kind of falls down. I'm not blaming the goal on Shamal, by the way, before we get criticised on our YouTube and the comments, for being overly critical. The goal doesn't happen without mistakes from Sangari, so he's put Shamal George in a bad position in that one, but it does just look a bit odd. He's dived, to be brutally honest.
What I would say is, for that, is I would have sympathy with Shamal, just because in that kind of one-on-one situation, Brophy's kind of got the whole goal to kind of go for. You can only kind of do as much to try and anticipate. In this instance, it's probably not came off. You know what Brophy's kind of like and stuff like that. Any good striker, they'll be taking that kind of opportunity. He's maybe even expecting them to go across goal and stuff like that. As a lot of strikers are kind of taught to do and stuff like that, rather than kind of going towards the near side. I feel like if I speak too much about the other fella involved in the goal, I'll get myself in trouble.
As I say, I'm being really nitpicky probably on the goalkeeping side of things. His dive just looks a bit odd, and he's kind of dived over the top of the ball in the end and just looks like he's almost just fallen down. But as I say, the goal doesn't happen without the mistakes from Sangari, and it needs to be dealt with at that point. The second goal, again, not meaning to go after Sangari in this instance, but once again, he's kind of sucked inside. Brophy's got acres of space to run in behind, and it's an absolute cracker of a finish by Brophy, to be absolutely fair to him. Nothing Shamal can do with that one. It's an absolute rocket in at the near post. And then Jordan White had a header just after that he's put wide. Only kind of real anything of note from us in the first half performance was a cross-come shot from Sangari, which Wickens has tipped over the bar. But other than that, we created very, very little of note. I'm going to give the manager some credit in terms of his second half. He's gone and made two changes. He's put Dan Mackay on the right-hand side. Newbley's moved over to the left. Bruce has come on and almost played as a number 10. And I think we actually started to cause Ross County a lot of problems, in particular kind of overloading on the right-hand side with Brandon and Mackay. I think we were getting a lot of joy down that side. And we do get the goal back very quickly into the second half. Sangari free kick kind of breaks to Bruce Anderson, who had come on at half-time. And it's a tidy finish by Bruce on his left foot. Good to see Bruce back in amongst the goals. He does like a goal up at Ross County. He's got a decent record up there over the kind of 3 years he's been at Livingston. And we've got ourselves back in the game.
Just before we kind of move on from that, do you don't think that goal's offside?
I didn't think there was an offside in it. I thought the VAR check was probably more for a handball with Michael Nottingham. That was kind of my initial thoughts. I didn't.
Is this the one that Io jumps over?
I'll be honest, I didn't even look for that
Yeah.
when I was watching the highlights again.
Either it's this one or it's the second one. There's one that Io's absolutely offside.
I would assume it would be the
over.
first one, given it came from a set play.
Yeah.
I would assume. But as I say, I
mean,
thought the check was more for how the ball broke to Anderson, and I thought it might have clipped somebody's hand or something like that. You know what VAR is like for a handball. That was kind of my initial thoughts on why the check was taking so long.
I don't know if I'm maybe getting it mixed up or anything like that, but there is definitely one of them that, Io seems to be in like the eye line of the goalkeeper, but it's kind of like that one was it Dundee had one where the player kind of jumped over the ball. So I don't know if there's like a legislation or something like that that's kind of came in now that's altered this rule or something. But looking it back, I'm like, I feel like we may have benefited on this occasion from it.
Yeah, as I say, we've managed to get ourselves back in the game very early doors. It gives us a platform in the second half to go for it. Did have a little scare. Brophy had a cross which has clipped the top of the bar, but I think we created some decent opportunities in the second half. Yengi had a strike which Wickens made a save from. Holt had a follow up on that was well blocked. Holt also had a kind of pot shot from 25 yards, which Wickens has made a save from. And again, I'll give the manager a little bit of credit. He's tweaked the shape again a little bit. Sean Kelly came on. We ended up going to what looked like a back three. Brandon came off. It meant that Mackay got pushed into that almost that right wing back role, Newbley on the other side. And we almost seemed to match Ross County up a little bit. It looked like we were playing a front three with Guthrie dropping off every now and then with Anderson and Yengi, and that kind of combination resulted in the equaliser. Ball forward by Sean Kelly. Guthrie's dropped in, won the initial flick on. And this is something we were crying out for earlier in the season when Guthrie was playing a lot of games. Folk running off him, gambling on him, winning balls. And Yengi's done that. He's ran in behind, managed to turn, very composed, plays Bruce Anderson in, and it's a cracking finish by Bruce once again to get his level with 5 minutes of normal time to go. Obviously, there were 7 minutes of stoppage time added on. This is where you just need to see the game out, in my opinion. You've managed to claw yourself back in the game, having been looked like dead and buried at half time with the performance that we put in. Davey, I listened to Davey's comments afterwards and he was talking about the shape. See the third goal? That's nothing to do with shape for me. That's nothing to do with the system we were playing. That's, as he put on the post-match, it's game management. There's 3 opportunities to stop that attack at the very beginning. Ball's played into Guthrie. First touch isn't tight enough. He loses the ball. Guthrie has an opportunity to clip Sheaf. Carson has an opportunity to take him out of the game. And it actually surprises me that David Carson didn't, because it's something that's a very good attribute in his game, is breaking up the game. And then Isles dived in and not made contact or given away the foul. And then we're wide open at that point. And the ball's played to Sims, who's got a 1v1 against Dan Mackay. And it's actually a very good finish by Josh Sims. And, we did have an opportunity very late on. Yengi had an effort which goes just wide. Tried to whip in the far corner from the edge of the box. But that third goal there's 3 opportunities to stop that. We're not savvy enough to just take the foul, take the yellow card, reset, deal with the set play. That's what's so frustrating about that goal. For me, it's nothing to do with our shape, that goal. It's nothing to do with how we set up to go for the game. That is all down to just game management and not spotting the danger that was on for us there. And it's cost us dearly. If we go back down the road, having taken a point from that game, having been 2-0 down at half time, we've still got the momentum going into these next 2 games, in my opinion, against Motherwell, St Johnstone. We are coming back down the road as if that's a victory, keeping that gap at 3 points from the position we're in. It's an even bigger psychological dent that we have got level so late on and then still lost the game. It's probably an even bigger psychological lift for Ross County, and it's an even bigger hit for us. I just feel I struggle to think how we come back from that now. I really,
To add to
really
that
do.
as well, like the performance in general, Ewan, for the magnitude of the game, wasn't it good enough? That first half, not good enough. Obviously, we've got players making brain dead mistakes and stuff like that as well. But did we do enough to realistically merit anything from that game? I wouldn't say so. I wouldn't say that Ross County did either, but the Ross County capitalised on every mistake. I think Ross County were at least fighting and scrapping for each other in a way that we probably weren't either. I think that they were picking up on a lot of more loose balls and all of that. And whenever the ball got to Simon Murray or to Eamon Brophy or that, they were looking to do stuff. Did our front line do that? Yengi was an ominous for the most part. Newbley may as well sat in the stand. Dan Mackay struggled to kind of get into the game. We didn't offer anything of real attacking intent there. We got 2 lucky goals basically because the balls fell to one of the best finishers in the league, and he's taken both of those instances. Other than that, we've had to resort to Jason Holt of all people taking shots from outside the box, which you would never have believed a long, long time ago. First and foremost, the players have got to take a lot of responsibility for that, because that is a performance that's not meriting the magnitude of that game, and we have a right as fans to be disgruntled about that, because that simply isn't good enough. It's not the worst performance they've had this season, but again, I don't think that they've showcased that anything to deserve taking anything from that match, in all honesty.
I think it's one of those. I do think it's a game of two halves. I think the first half, up until the opening goal, I don't think there was anything in the game. It was fairly cagey, I would have thought, albeit I think Ross County were gradually working their way into the game at the point of the goal. And then after that, we looked rattled, to be honest, at the remainder of that half. I do think second half, obviously getting the goal so early doors kind of changes the whole momentum of the game. And I do think we were the better side in the second half. Albeit, I think Ross County still had their threat on the break, in particular probably down our right-hand side. Simon Murray was getting, a lot of space out that side in particular. But I do think we were the better side in that half, and probably at that point merited the equaliser in my opinion. But the only positives I can take from that was the character that we showed to get back in the game from the position that we were in. But as you say, I think the players need to take a lot of responsibility on that one. I don't think a lot of that falls on the manager for me. And I know everyone is desperate to have a go at the manager at times, but how can you hold the manager responsible for the individual mistakes in that game and the game management on the park? For me, you can sit and moan about the starting 11, but it was the same starting 11 that went and won against St Mirren the week before. You can't complain that he's kept the same team out in the park. I know Sean Kelly and Christian Montano were on the bench, and you could have looked at them playing left back, but how fit were they actually? I don't think they were fully fit to start that game, which is why they've not started the game.
I think, though, see in those instances as well, though, Ewan, don't name players on the bench. There's no point in doing it. Put somebody in the young team, or the youth team, in there instead. It's what's the point of putting somebody on the bench to just be like, oh yeah, I'm never going to have an intention of using them or anything like that. Put somebody on the bench who you need to use them. You can actually use them. Like, it just seems like a stupid thing to like once to come back and be like, yeah, he was in the squad, but yeah, he wasn't going to play at all. Good as that. I don't care if it's like a psychological thing or anything like that. They're going to see that Christian Montano's not been played for months. They're going to see, by the second half that he's not came on after our left backs had an absolute howler. They know he's not going to come on.
It is a frustrating one, and it probably heightens fans' frustrations because not every fan is privy to what's going on or fitness of players or how much they've trained during the week. And the problem is they see that these guys are on the bench and go, so why is he playing? Why isn't he playing? If he's on the bench, he must be fit. But it's obviously not the case in some instances. And for me, it doesn't fall on the manager, that one. I think he's set up in a manner which we've been playing well, played a 4-2-3-1 to start with. I think he's actually made a tactical tweak in the game, which has got us back in the game. It's actually that change in shape has resulted in the equaliser because that front three's combined to create that goal. For me, it's individual mistakes and a lack of game management in particular for that third goal. There's 3 opportunities to stop that third goal at source, and we've not taken it, and it's such a massive, massive dent to us now. We can't keep letting these opportunities pass us by. We're running out of games now. And if you look at it over the course of this season, against Motherwell, 2 games against Motherwell, we've taken 3 points. Okay, that's a win each, right? St Johnstone, we've only managed to take 2 points off of in the 2 games. Ross County, we've taken 2 points from a possible 9. Even looking at Dundee as a newly promoted side, 0 points from 9.
I think I've said this to a lot of people. If you're in a league and you've played the team at 11th place 3 times and you've not beat them, you can't have any qualms that you're below them in the table. We can only hold our hands up and say, and at that as well, we've conceded 6 goals against them. Obviously, they've conceded 5 against us as well, but like we've all got ourselves to blame. Like we could point at anything else. It's just I think that's what's the most frustrating one about this Ewan is that the good feeling that's kind of been back around the club, the travelling support that we had there and everything like that, but were absolutely excellent. The following there, that was one of the best kind of pre-game stuff for like Livingston. There's been even kind of when we went down in the game, still trying to get behind the team and all of that. And I just don't think it really, really reflected that. And it's probably one of the few times you can maybe say that the fans have kind of done their bit more so than kind of the players have for, in terms of showing up in numbers and, being boisterous throughout the whole game and stuff like that. And I think that's like a thing that is going to hurt us even more as well, is that, we're going to have St Johnstone away next Saturday. Are many people going to be making the journey, having seen like a performance like that, having seen ridiculous mistakes like that, players who, put it bluntly, you should never have been signed in the first place, costing us in the biggest moments of the season. It's just
As I say, I think we may be slightly different. I do think the second half performance was better, but if you're going to make mistakes like that and what's your biggest game of the season, there's just no way of getting around it other than it's costing us so dearly at this moment in time, and we're running out of games. We're running out of games at an alarming rate, and we're getting to a point where we can't make a mistake now. We can't slip up. Looking at these next two games against Motherwell and St Johnstone, for me, anything less than 4 points at this point is game over. And Saturday was just such a massive opportunity to, one, obviously reel Ross County right in amongst it. But then you've got the potential in these next two to drag them back into it, drag Motherwell, drag St Johnstone, have them looking over their shoulders again. And it's such a massive opportunity that's been missed by ourselves. As I said, we come back down the road to a point, given the manner of the game, given the position we were in at half time, I think I would have been content, and it would have felt more like a victory. And I feel like we would have still had the momentum behind us from the previous couple of weeks, and particularly the manner in which we went up there and got a point. But the manner in which we've ended up losing the game is just, yeah, I think it's difficult. I like to think of myself as fairly positive as a fan, but even I'm really struggling to see where you get out of this from now. And
it's one of those ones because, as you say there, Motherwell and St Johnstone next two games. Say we did somehow win two of the games, completely changes it. You're absolutely right. It does, because you'd be back on level of 1 points with them if results were to go our way as well. But can we trust this team right now to string a couple of wins like that together? Even string a couple of decent kind of solid enough performances to get 4 points together? Nah, not really. These are the games that we've seen all season. Obviously, we beat Motherwell earlier in the year and that, but every other game against Ross County, against another one against Motherwell away from home, and the two against Johnston so far, they've shown that they're not up to it. They're not going to take these opportunities, and they've every single one of those games, apart from that one at home, where we've been benefited by a man going down right before half time. Yeah, we've just not shown any sort of character in those kind of ways. You go back to that Motherwell away one, we were 3-0 down within like 20 minutes. Ross County in that first game, again, well, the two Ross County games, it's Bruce Anderson who's kind of dug you out a hole a little bit because he's taking chances that maybe nobody else kind of does when we've not really created too many kind of clear-cut openings. St Johnstone as well. Can't even think of any kind of proper highlights from either of them as well. We're not good enough. That's it.
it is at that point where you do. I think I replied to a comment on our Facebook, and somebody said we must be the unluckiest team in the league. I don't think being unlucky gets you in the position that we're in. I think there comes a point, I always say this, that my dad's very rose-tinted Livingston fan, and I remember the season we got relegated from the Championship, and I mind him saying, we're the better team most weeks. I was like, well, if we're the better team most weeks, then we shouldn't be second bottom of the league. The league table doesn't lie. And it's that point now, you just need to sit and go, maybe we just aren't good enough this year in general. And I just feel like that's... I said it after the last Ross County game where we drew 2-each. I thought that was the final nail in the coffin, and then we got that little bit of belief. But I feel like that, once again, is the final nail in the coffin. I just don't see how we come back from that. As I say, the only grain of hope you have is if you can get into the the split within 3 points of the team above you. But as you say, it's difficult to trust the team to go and achieve that. Even achieve that being in contact come the split. It's very difficult to try and remain upbeat and positive after that. It's
To add to
picking the
that good
stones.
point there about like being in contact and stuff like that, I do think that the team is good enough on paper to kind of do that. We don't have any divine right to go and beat any of these sides. You don't have any divine right to go beat anybody. I wouldn't say, other than that one Motherwell game, so you're talking about, what was that, 7 games against the teams who are kind of around us. That Motherwell game is the only one I would say that we've deserved to probably win it. And for 6 other games against teams who are nothing you should be fearful of, to not kind of have had a performance in amongst them that you're like, we probably deserve to take the 3 points from that. That's what tells you all you need to know. That is the defining factor of the season, is that we've not been good enough against those around us. We've not tried to win in a few of those instances as well, and we've been punished for it. Can only blame ourselves.
We're delighted to have Strana Apparel as sponsors of Talk Livi. UK based with a Swedish soul, we are Strana. Strana is an independent fashion brand from Scotland who create high quality and stylish attire for on and off the terraces. Inspired by terrace culture, lifestyle and music, all their clothing is designed using quality materials and workmanship to combine the very best style and fit. All of this means you get a premium quality fashion at affordable prices while enjoying a simple and secure service.
As a bonus for Talk Livi listeners, you can get 10% off your order using the code TalkLivi at the checkout. We'll also have some exclusive giveaways during the season, so keep your eyes peeled on our socials for those too. And thanks to Sterner for sponsoring Talk Livi.
Next up for the Lions is a visit from Motherwell live on the Sky Sports cameras, which is astonishing, and the whole of Scottish football is up in arms that it's not one of the Old Firm or the Edinburgh Derby that are featuring on the Sky cameras this midweek. But Angus, what's the feeling with yourself like ahead of this one?
Just gotta be bored, mate. It's feeling like more of my duty than actual want to kind of go to this. I just feel like Motherwell is that team as well, who he just caused us so much kind of problems in the past that it's like the last kind of team I want to see, out with like your big guns and stuff like that. They played really well against Celtic as well on Sunday. It doesn't matter who plays us right now, Euan. I've just got right now I've just got no optimism. Everything's black and white. Everything's awful. Predictions.
Well, kind of looking at Motherwell as a whole, I know Motherwell have been in a sticky patch themselves. Obviously, they kind of ended that when they beat us. But I think the big difference with Motherwell on their run without a win was they were still actively picking up points. They were still picking up draws here and there. It wasn't like our run where it was like 2 draws in amongst 15 defeats. They were still picking up points, and in some cases good points. They were scoring a lot of late goals. They were coming from behind in games. So for me, they've actually shown a fair bit of character. Just looking at the kind of split on points home and away, they've played 13 away from home. They have only won 1 game away from home. However, they've drawn 7. As I say, they've still actively picked up. It's a bit like when we got promoted, actually, and everyone was talking about our shocking away record and that we'd only won 1 away from home, but we actually went to places and picked up points. Went to Tynecastle, picked up points, went to Easter Road, went to Celtic Park, went to Pittodrie, went all these grounds and picked up draws. But because it's not a win, it goes very much unnoticed. But as I say, they've still been resolute enough that they've been actively picking up points, and I think you know what you get with Motherwell. It's probably going to be a fairly physical encounter. Theo Bair has all of a sudden got himself in the running for the Ballon d'Or for this year. I don't think any St Johnstone fan or any fan of Scottish football probably saw his run of form coming, and he's been excellent, and he certainly put us to the sword just before New Year as well. But I think it's going to be a tough game, and even if we were to get in front of the game, you can't you can't guarantee that we're going to go and see the game out because, as I say, Motherwell have. I think they've gained the most points from losing positions this season in the league, which again shows that they've got a little bit of character about them, and they are capable of picking up points here and there. And yeah, I think it's going to be a tough game, to be brutally honest with you. Players that we'll obviously need to keep an eye out for. Speaking about Theo Bair there, just because of the form that he finds himself in at this moment in time. Player I really likes Blair Spittle. I think he's a good creative force in the middle of the park. His delivery from dead balls, just his delivery in general is very, very good. Scored a cracking goal at the weekend there against Celtic, which kind of demonstrates the quality he's got, and he's chipped in with 6 goals himself this season, 8 assists. So those are kind of players that you'll need to be very, very wary of during the game. But let's be honest, we can't keep affording to let these sort of games slip by us. We are at a point now where we can't make mistakes, and we have to go and start picking up wins. Draws here, there, they aren't going to do us any favours between now and the end of the season. We have to go and win this game. Motherwell are a team that have, to put it bluntly, been a bogey team for us over the years, both home and away. Albeit we've had slightly more joy at our place against them in recent kind of seasons, but they do have a habit of coming to our place and kicking the stuffing out of us at times as well. So yeah, spoke about how we went into that St Mirren game, and I thought the crowd was excellent, and we're obviously in very positive spirits after that Partick Thistle game, but I don't think the crowd is going to be in the same positive mindset coming into this one, and I think that the team needs to take control of that and be on the front foot from the get-go and try and get the crowd behind them as much as they can early doors in the game, because I feel if we have a lackluster start, the place is just going to get a bit toxic, if I'm totally honest, with the position we find ourselves in, and that's just going to play into Motherwell's hands. But yeah, I think it's going to be a tough game, and I think we're going to need to show some of the battling qualities that we showed in particular in that recent St Mirren game to get anything out of it.
Spot on, to be honest. Yeah, the crowd, can imagine it's not going to be a great one on Tuesday, on Wednesday even, which is going to be a great thing for the Sky cameras. But yeah, the players have got to pick themselves up. We've tried our best to do what we can. It didn't really work on a Saturday. So, the players have got to come out and give us something to cheer for. And attacking front especially, there's a lot of players on that park who I have to say was a performance after Saturday. But I guess changes for the team, Euan. I guess there's probably a lot of people will be saying Sean Kelly to come in for Sangari. Is there anything else that you would maybe look at?
Yeah, well, certainly kind of looking at Motherwell, I think they've kind of favoured playing a back three in recent weeks. Again, very physical, the likes of Mugabe at the back, McGinn, Casey, all very physical guys in the back three. Probably lends itself again a little bit more to the likes of Teti Yengi starting up top on his own. Case of who plays in behind him. We saw Andrew Shinnie come off early doors. Stephen Kelly came off early doors in the game at the weekend. Don't know how much that was just to make a statement, how much of it was tactical, how much of it was players not being fit. There's plenty you can read in between the lines for that. I think an obvious one, as you mentioned there, is probably looking at left back if the likes of Montano or Sean Kelly are fit enough to start the game, even if it's just to start the game and give them 60 minutes and then see where we go from there. Middle of the park and behind.
I'll play left back if they want.
But yeah, I think as much as we kind of started with that team and Andrew Shinnie played wide, I just don't think you get the same pace and threat when Shinnie plays out there. I'd rather see the likes of Dan Mackay from the get-go in the team. Nubly, as much as his form had picked up in recent weeks, again, he didn't do enough for me at the weekend. But again, I think a lot of the team selection is dictated by whether guys are fit or not, Angus, if I'm honest with you. And it seems like, if I'm led to believe, we had 8 fit players training before the St Mirren game. So I think that tells you the position that we find ourselves in. So we might be tied into playing a very similar team once again, just based on availability. And I can't say a lot more than that. Who I would like to see out in the park, if I could pick my ideal starting 11 in terms of the personnel, I'd probably have Sean Donnellan back in at centre back. I'd have, in terms of fitness, Penners and Montano at left back, and I'd have Bradley and Mackay either side of Stephen Kelly further forward. But as I say, I don't know how many of these players are actually fit and available to go and play. So it's difficult to predict at this moment in time, isn't it?
Guess we'll just have to wait until whatever bloody time, and we'll see that team sheet come out, and we'll probably have our usual reaction to it. But prediction, Ewan?
I don't even know why I'm doing this to myself.
You're kidding me on. You're not going for. Are you going positive?
I'm going to go for a point. I'm going to go one each. Motherwell have a track record of draws away from home. Yeah, I'm going to go for a one each draw. What about yourself?
2-1 Motherwell.
At least there's a positive. We're actually predicting us to score goals. And I think that's us scored in 6 of our last 8 games in the Premiership as well.
I wouldn't be surprised if we scored all 3 and we still lost.
Oh wow! 2 weeks of positivity, and the Dementor has returned
Hey,
with a
give it a
vengeance.
chance. Give it a chance. Back the team, give it a chance.
Well, next up is a trip to Perth. After that, again, it's a wee bit more difficult to predict because we do have that game in between. But it's it's another game where we can't really afford any slip ups, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. We've talked to a great extent about, the games against the teams around us this season and how we've not done enough. If we go and play like we did against St Johnstone again, like we have twice already this season, then what's the point anymore? They're a team who's not having any form of consistency. There's a lot of their fans are kind of not impressed with a lot of the kind of defensive standards and the commitment of a couple of players and stuff like that as well. So looking at a team as fragile as that, we've kind of got to go and give it a wee bit more of a bash. But the players need to, again, take that into their own hands. Like say Joel Newbley, due as a performance in one of these games, Teddy Yankee, we need to go and use these players to try and capitalize on other team's shortcomings because, every other team is capitalizing on ours, yet we are unable to do anything to anybody else. So it all just depends on which version of us shows up, in all honesty. And I'd be inclined to just say it's going to be the same one that we've seen for basically 90% of the season.
Yeah, I think St Johnstone again. It's a kind of what you're going to get with St Johnstone in the sense that they're going to be well organised. They're going to be difficult to break down. It's kind of characteristics of any Craig Levein side over the years. They've been playing predominantly, I think, a back 3 for the most part, but I think you can get change out the back 3. I think Liam Gordon in particular, he's came in for a lot of criticism from St Johnstone fans in terms of his performances. Considine, in terms of if you do manage to get in behind him, I think you can try to turn him and getting in behind with a bit of pace. So that probably lends itself again in terms of personnel available that you would want a Mackay or a Bradley who could exploit that playing up there. But they're not a team that score a lot of goals. Just having a very quick glance, don't know if it's accurate or not. We did have our issues with arithmetic last week, Angus, on the podcast when we were calculating goal difference, but I believe it's 1-1-10 for them. So they're not a team banging form, but again, they're here and there, they're grinding out a point and just kind of keeping themselves ticking over. But just looking at these 2 games as a whole, it is a case that you're looking to try and drag as many teams back into the mix as possible. And again, these 2 games are ideal opportunities to do that. But it's whether or not we can exploit that, plain and simple. Going up to McDermott Park, I watched the game against Rangers the other week. The pitch is looking its typical McDermott Park self at this time of the year. Very bobbly, very difficult to kind of keep the ball on the deck. It just gives me the fear that we're going to go with a very, very direct approach, whilst I think we need to try and be a bit more committed to try to play a little bit. And as much as the result of the weekend there has been positives in the fact that we look like we can score goals again, which gives us an opportunity to win games of football. And we need to try and persist with that mentality and try and avoid just being so direct. Try and get your creative players on the ball. But yeah, I think it's going to be a very, like most games against St Johnstone, there's not a lot of games that stick out in my memory of being really classics. I think one last season where we went up there and won 4-2. But most of the games are very percentage football. You know, the game at our place just after Christmas, it was a stick on 0-0 from about 10 minutes in. It just, games typically tend to lack a bit of quality. And again, I just don't see the game offering much else in that. In terms of players we'll need to be maybe a little bit wary of. Graham Carey's kind of their creative force. He's chipped in with a few goals, assists this season. He's got a decent left foot. He's a player that we'll need to be aware of. The boy Phillips in the middle of the park. I know a lot of St Johnstone fans think quite highly of him in terms of how he controls the game, kind of sitting a little bit deeper in midfield. So maybe try to get somebody almost on him to stop him trying to let the game tick. Might be a thought process from us. But yeah, I just think I think it's going to be a pretty ugly game, and if we are going to get anything, it's going to be a grafting performance and try to be resolute. And I think the first goal is going to be very, very important in this game.
Yeah, and for that reason, my prediction is Johnston 1, Livingston 0.
I think I've gone insane.
Are you picking an away win? Come on. Screw it, do it.
1-0 Livingston.
Woo! And a clean sheet away from home.
I think I have. I think I have
Right,
just
you
gone
have gone
insane.
insane.
Maybe
You
I
seen
did
that
hit.
back line.
Maybe I did hit my head when I got hit by that car.
My word.
I think I've gone insane, I guess.
Honestly, I can't believe what I've just heard. But okay, I would love for nothing more for you to be proven right, Euan. Hopefully, we can still get a decent support up, but I'm finding it really hard to just not be completely.
I'll be
the
brutally
way
honest with you. I think I'm just looking forward to the fact I fly out to Budapest the day after. So yeah, just I'm kind of hoping the team gives me a little bit of a buzz before going away, instead of putting me on an absolute downer going on that flight. But yeah, it's so difficult to. I think I'm just predicting that out of blind loyalty. If I'm being brutally honest with you. But yeah, if you can, try and get yourself up to McDermott Park. The team does need the support, and I'm sure the support up at Ross County made a difference in the second half in terms of getting us back into the game. So between now and the end of the season, they need all the fans they can get, following the team being as vocal as possible. So yeah, and I encourage the same on Wednesday night against Motherwell as well. Let's make it a positive atmosphere, getting behind the team as much as possible.
That's it for this week's episode of Talk Livi. We really appreciate you tuning in every week, and we'd love to hear your feedback. You can leave us a review on iTunes or drop us a message on Twitter, Facebook, or Instagram.
As Angus said, we are on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram, so simply search Talk Livi to find us, and you'll find all the links to our weekly episodes on there as well. And any shares and likes are always appreciated. All our episodes are available on all the usual podcast streaming sites, including iTunes and Spotify. We're also on YouTube, and we'd love you to subscribe to the channel. But if none of those options suit you, all you have to do is head to our website, talklivipodcast.libsyn.com, where you'll find every single episode we've done over the last few years.
That's it for this week. Thanks to all our listeners for tuning in. Let's hope for a better week following the Lothian's finest football team.
Let's hope for a week. Should we just finish it with let's hope for a
Let's
week
just hope for a
following
week
Lothian's
that
finest?
everything just comes crashing down and this terrible existence comes to an end.
Yeah, so let's hope for a week following the Lothian's finest football team. That we can guarantee. There will be a week following them. So there you go.
Livingston, our love will never die. West Lothian, West Lothian is our battle cry. This is the place from which we hail. Livingston, oh Livingston, it's up to Ambervale. Livingston, 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 oh Livingston, oh Livingston, we love it when you score. Livingston, oh Livingston, the Ambervale Lions roar. Livingston, oh Livingston, we realize our vision. Livingston, oh Livingston, into the Premier Division.